We looked at our staff resources to see what do we have. You know, we needed to do a gap analysis. What do we have versus what do we need? So we created a list of all of our technicians, what their primary, secondary, and tertiary modality expertise was. You know, looked at what their assignments were and where they lived. This is a map of their homes. Some interesting things came out of that. Here's a situation where in that top circle there was a tech by the name of Steve Solito who lived maybe about half an hour northwest of Milwaukee and traveled every day down to the south region to support CT, general rad, mammography, and bone densitometry. There was a guy that lived in northern Illinois who drove every day up to the metro region, to Milwaukee, to support the same thing. Duh. So we flipped those two guys around. We did a manning study, again, a gap analysis to see what do we have, what do we need. And we had device hours for each of our modalities that identifies what it takes to support that in a year. And so, and that was based on our own data, our own historical data. For those things that we weren't supporting in-house, we reached out to other people that were supporting those things in-house to find out what does it take to support this thing over a year. Plugged in those numbers. And what you see here is actually an application of that original Manning study that we use. You know, Karen, in your presentation, you talked about how you justify staff. This is what we use to justify staff. Because what we do is we take the net adds. Well, first of all, you present your productivity. Okay, we have a productivity model that is sanctioned by our own operations improvement group. Okay, so using your productivity measurement, we're at or above 100% productivity. So you first establish, I can't absorb any more work. Okay, then we look at what were the net adds. We deleted so many devices, we added so many devices. Here's the associated device hours, and that translates into a certain number of FTEs. Okay, now with these adds, again, I've already established that I can't absorb anymore. So I got two choices: either I can outsource it, pay somebody else to support it for this much, or you give me the people I need and I can support it for this much. What would you like me to do? That's a great way to get to the answer, yes. If you look down at the second row of numbers there, you'll see, and this was just a snapshot, when we started this, our available device hours per FTE, and that's actual wrench turning time. So you take the 2080 hours and you subtract all the person's paid time off, you subtract meeting time, and any of the time that's not associated with turning a wrench. And when we started this, we were at 1,137 hours, okay? And at this particular point in time, we were at 1,230. Where we are at today is over 1,400 device hours per technician. So one of the things that we also show finance is we aren't sitting on our hands continuing to do things the same way all the time. We're always looking for ways to streamline processes, to get more efficient at what we do. And that's another way to get to yes, because the first question I'm going to ask you is, well, can't you do things more efficiently? Well, yeah, we have. As a matter of fact, if we hadn't, I'd need, here it says I need 5.32. If I hadn't done those things, I would have needed 7, okay? So it gives them assurances that we're doing the things that we need to do. We communicated this model out via group meetings with HR, finance, and administration, clinical department meetings, our own clinical engineering department meetings, because we wanted to get buy-in from our own staff and get their support. We had a booth at Aurora's annual leadership convention. We went to management briefings and presented it. We put items in system newsletters. We actually printed brochures that we handed out to all of our customers. Very quickly, I want to walk through the cost reduction methodology that we used when we met with finance. Here's just a snapshot of the contract costs for that metro region. We had just over $1 million in contracts for just CT and MR. And this shows adding in all of the other contracts for diagnostic ultrasound, the stuff that was in general biomed, imaging, laser printers, Nuke Med, and other various things. And we came up with a $5.2 million spend in contracts for those things that we felt we could do in-house. Now, whether we're supporting it or the vendor supporting it, you're going to have parts spend. You're going to have T&M spend because you can't do 100% of everything. And we estimated what that would cost. And you know, the same formula doesn't apply to everything, but in general, if you're doing this kind of analysis, you can figure that if you're doing it well, you're going to be able to have about a 60% of your contract cost in parts and time and materials spend. We added to that what our first year training costs would be, and determined that we could deliver a little over $2 million in savings. Now, that didn't take into account the increase in salaries, so we took that amount off. Vehicles, fuel, and maintenance, took that off. First year training, took that off. Tools and test equipment, took that off. And what we committed to them was a minimum first year net savings of $626,000, or a 5-year minimum net savings of $4.2 million. What we actually delivered was $3 million in reduced service spend in the first 2 years. So we did a pretty good job of meeting our commitments. This is just a sample of the justification that we used for vehicles. We didn't want to buy or lease a vehicle for every one of these guys that traveled. We only wanted to do it where it made sense. So, you know, this was the analysis that we did of leasing a vehicle versus, you know, doing mileage reimbursement.